If an alien craft landed in front of you right now, you wouldn't see it. In 1964, at the height of the Cold War, 3 military officers at Holloman Air Force Base watched an impossible vessel touch down on their runway. But when the doors opened, they didn't see terrifying extraterrestrials. They saw 3 ordinary men wearing polo shirts and khakis. For decades, the world dismissed it as a joke. But a highly classified file known as Pursue Release 01 reveals a truth far more disturbing. Those clothes weren't real, and the beings wearing them just hacked the human brain. The year is 1964, the heat of the Cold War. The New Mexico desert is a sprawling hotbed of classified military testing, a place where the horizon constantly shimmers with heat and secrets. Holloman Air Force Base, situated near the White Sands Missile Range, stands as one of the most impenetrable installations on Earth. Its personnel are trained to be objective, precise, and completely immune to panic. They are observers of reality. But on this particular spring afternoon, reality itself became malleable. It began as an anomaly on the radar screens, a high-altitude object moving at velocities that defied the aerodynamic capabilities of any known Soviet or American aircraft, suddenly decelerated. It didn't glide, it dropped, slicing through the desert sky with an unsettling mathematical precision. In the control tower, 3 highly trained air traffic controllers watched the radar sweep in silence. Then, they looked out the windows. Through the shimmering desert haze, a craft appeared. It was an oval, seamless vessel, its surface reflecting the harsh New Mexico sun like polished glass or liquid mercury. It drifted downward, completely silent, before touching down directly on the concrete runway. For several agonizing minutes, nothing happened. The wind swept across the tarmac, carrying the faint scent of ozone. The 3 officers in the tower held their breath, their hands hovering over their radios, waiting to sound the alarm, waiting for a sign of hostility. Then, a section of the oval craft's seamless hull simply dissolved, opening a dark passage to the interior. From that darkness, 3 figures stepped out into the blinding light. They were small, measuring roughly 4 feet in height. Their skin was a pale, ash gray, and their heads were disproportionately large, dominated by massive, deep black eyes that seemed to absorb the light around them. But it was what they wore that paralyzed the observers with a profound sense of confusion. They were not wearing pressurized spacesuits, metallic flight gear, or any kind of advanced technological armor. Instead, they appeared to be dressed in ordinary, mid-century American civilian clothing. Specifically, they looked as though they had just walked out of a local department store, wearing simple t-shirts and casual slacks. To the officers in the tower, this familiar, mundane detail was deeply reassuring. It grounded the bizarre encounter in something recognizable. It diffused the immediate instinctual urge to trigger the base's defensive systems. It made the extraordinary feel ordinary. But that feeling of safety was the actual weapon. Years later, when the highly classified files of the Pursue project were partially declassified under strict guidelines, military psychologists and intelligence analysts revealed a far more complex truth. The intelligence report concluded that the 3 entities were not wearing cotton t-shirts and polyester slacks in the middle of a secure military runway. The physical reality of what they were wearing, or what their actual physical forms looked like beneath the illusion, was entirely masked. The military investigators determined that the oval craft was emitting a constant, low-frequency microwave signal. This signal was not designed to disrupt the base's electronics or scramble their radar. It was designed to target the human biology. Specifically, the microwave frequency was tuned to interact directly with the visual cortex of the human brain. The eyes of the officers did indeed capture the light bouncing off the gray-skinned entities, but before those signals could be processed by the conscious mind, the microwave transmission intercepted the data. It hijacked the neural pathway, projecting a cognitive overlay directly onto their perception. In essence, the observers did not see what was actually there. They saw what their brains were programmed to see. The human brain is a highly complex machine, but it possesses a critical vulnerability. It hates chaos. When confronted with something that violates its understanding of physics and biology, the brain experiences a severe cognitive shock. To prevent a catastrophic panic response, the hijacked visual cortex grabbed the most harmless, mundane templates available in the observer's subconscious minds. Everyday, suburban clothing. The microwave signal facilitated this override, creating a perfect, projected cognitive illusion. The entities were wearing a digital mask, painted directly onto the retinas of the men watching them. This revelation shifts the narrative from a standard close encounter into the realm of psychological dread. It suggests that the most effective disguise is not a physical costume or a high-tech cloaking device. The ultimate camouflage is one that uses the observer's own brain against them. If you can control the neural signals that define perception, you can walk among humans completely unnoticed, or, at the very least, completely misunderstood. You can appear as a neighbor, a co-worker, or a passing stranger on the street, while your true nature remains entirely hidden behind a wall of projected normalcy. To understand how scientifically plausible this hypothesis is, we have to look at how our brains construct reality. Neuroscientists have long known that our eyes are not cameras. They do not record a passive video feed of the world. Instead, the eyes gather fragmented data points of light, shadow, and movement. This raw, chaotic data is sent to the back of the brain, where the visual cortex reconstructs it based on past experiences, expectations, and evolutionary programming. We do not see the world as it is. We see a highly edited, rendered version of the world that our brain deems safe and useful for survival. This rendering process is surprisingly fragile. In laboratory settings, researchers have successfully used localized magnetic fields and low-level electromagnetic stimulation to alter how subjects perceive colors, shapes, and even motion. Under the influence of these fields, a subject can look at a straight line and perceive it as curved, or look at a familiar face and find it completely unrecognizable. If a laboratory setting in the 21st century can achieve this on a basic level, it is highly probable that an advanced technology could achieve a seamless, real-time cognitive override on a mass scale. The implications of the Holloman Air Force Base incident stretch far beyond a single afternoon in 1964. If military intelligence discovered that human perception could be bypassed and reprogrammed via external frequencies, it raises a chilling question about the nature of our modern environment. Today, we live in a world saturated with electromagnetic signals. We are constantly bathed in Wi-Fi, cellular data streams, radio waves, and satellite transmissions. Our urban centers are dense grids of invisible energy. If the technology documented in Pursue Release 01 was refined over the decades, how would we ever know if it was being deployed around us? Consider the phenomenon of mass indifference. We often walk through crowded train stations, busy streets, and packed public spaces, barely registering the faces of those we pass. We assume they are just like us, living ordinary lives, dressed in ordinary clothes. But what if some of those figures are not what they seem? What if our collective perception is being quietly managed by subtle, low-frequency waves, keeping us calm, keeping us compliant, and keeping us from seeing a reality that our minds are simply not equipped to handle? The military report on the Holloman incident suggested that the primary purpose of the cognitive projection was defensive. The entities did not use the illusion to attack. They used it to negotiate without triggering a violent, fear-based reaction from the military personnel. It was a diplomatic tool, a way to level the playing field by neutralizing human hostility. But any tool used for diplomacy can also be used for infiltration. If a biological entity can project an image of a harmless man in a t-shirt, it can just as easily project the image of an authority figure, a doctor, a police officer, or a leader. This brings us to a deeply unsettling philosophical crossroads. We rely entirely on our senses to navigate our lives, to make decisions, and to form connections with others. We trust that when we look at a loved one, a friend, or a stranger, we are seeing their true physical form. But the declassified files of 1964 suggest that this trust may be built on a foundation of sand. The line between objective reality and projected illusion is incredibly thin, and it can be manipulated by forces we cannot see, using frequencies we cannot hear. As we look back at the events of Holloman Air Force Base, we are left with a lingering sense of unease. The witnesses who stood on that tarmac are gone, but their testimony remains locked in the archives of military history, a testament to an afternoon when the boundaries of human perception were quietly crossed. We are left to wonder what else might be hiding in plain sight, protected by the very limitations of our own minds. The Holloman incident proved one terrifying fact. Our eyes don't capture objective reality. They only project what we are programmed to see. The ultimate disguise isn't physical. It's neurological. When you walk through a crowded street tomorrow, look closely at the stranger passing by. Is that really a human in a jacket? Or is your brain just protecting you from what's actually standing there? What do you think is hiding in our blind spots? Drop your theories in the comments below, subscribe to the Shadow Ledger, and remember, never trust your own eyes.